Hello everyone, I am your educator Anjali and I am going to take UPSC Pledge series on environment on Arpita Sharma classes. We are going to cover some important topics in environment in 4 classes. This is the second class. Please go back and watch the first class that is there on the channel. You can subscribe to Sir Arpita Sharma classes to never miss an update from us. Please do press the bell icon. You can download the PDF of this lecture from our Telegram channel, Simplifying UPSC with Ease. Link is given in the description box below. The topics for today are the Paris Agreement, National Green Tribunal, Air Pollutants, and the National Water Mission. I have made the PPTs as elaborative as possible because these are very much like static topics and there is a lot of content that has to be read from these topics. So let's start with Paris Agreement. So Paris Agreement took place in 2015 as a part of United Nations Climate Change Conference UNFCCC at COP21 and CMP21. Say COP21 and CMP11. So what is this Paris Agreement? Give me a second. So what is this Paris Agreement? What is the Paris Deal? It is the international agreement that we have, that the United Nations has designed to combat the climate change, because climate change is one of the biggest problems of the world right now, and to reduce and mitigate the greenhouse gas emissions in the atmosphere. Who are the signatories to this Paris deal? There are 195 as of 2019. 180 plus countries have ratified it. India has also signed and ratified it in 2016. It entered into force in November 2016 after all this the clause has been met. That is, if this Paris deal had to come into force, ratification by 55 countries that account for at least 55% of global emissions had to sign and ratify it. So now on November 2016 it has come into force. So you can see very large number of countries have signed it, and that itself will tell you how significant this Paris Agreement is. Now, what are the aims of this Paris Agreement? This is to keep the global temperature rise in the century well below 2 degrees Celsius. Now, when I say 2 degrees Celsius, above the pre-industrial levels, you can think that this 2 degree Celsius is such a small temperature change. And why is it so difficult to keep it not cross 2 degrees Celsius? But 2 degrees Celsius can be smaller in number, but it matters a lot for Earth. That we have to take some efforts to limit the temperature increase to even further to 1.5 degrees Celsius. Now we have to strengthen the countries to deal with the impacts of climate change. Once you tell the countries that they have to limit their emissions is not always enough. You have to tell them how they can achieve it as well. So that is also given by the Paris Agreement. Now if you ask me, why did the climate change topic become a hot topic in 2016? Because the Paris Agreement was signed then. Was there no pollution before 2016? No. There was pollution before 2016, and instead of Paris Agreement, before this we had another protocol called as the Kyoto Protocol that also dealt with the climate change. Let us, in the few other slides, let us also see what was that Kyoto Protocol. Now, there is something called as nationally determined targets in the Paris Agreement. These nationally determined targets are, once I tell you it is national, that means it is country-wise. That is, a country has to tell and it has to declare what is this going to do to keep the temperatures well below 1.2 degrees Celsius, 1.5 degrees Celsius. So these are known as the nationally determined target. It means that the contributions that need to be done by each country to achieve the overall global goal, and it has to be communicated. Now we know every small effort put together will make a bigger change. So every country making one small effort will help in reducing the overall temperature of the earth. The contributions need to be reported every 5 years to UNFCCC. Now this UNFCCC is the parent organization of Paris Agreement. The contributions are not legally binding. The goal is only the contributions are not legally binding, okay? But they have to put efforts to reduce the climate change. or the global temperatures. The goal is to make sure that all the countries have access to technical expertise and financial capability to meet the climate changes. What are now, I told you that each country has to give a target under this. So these are some examples of how the countries have given their targets. India has said that it will emission intensity of GDP 35 to 33 to 35% below 2005 levels by 2030, power capacity to be 40% of the non-fuel based, because fuel based only is going to create more of pollution. So if we are using non fossil fuels, then it will reduce the pollution. China, emission intensity of GDP 60 to 65% below 2005 levels by 2030. See, peak emissions around 2030, non-fossil fuel to be 20% of primary use consumption by 2030. Now, what did the USA say? That it will reduce to 26 to 28% below 2005 levels by 2025 itself. It is saying it will reduce it by 2025 itself. But why this Paris Agreement is in news recently is because of USA. Let us see that also in the future slides. Now, European Union that has told that it will reduce emissions below 40% of 1990 levels by 2030 itself. Now, what is this Kyoto Protocol? What was this Kyoto Protocol and what is this Paris Agreement? Let us see. Paris Agreement is replacing the previous climate change agreement, that is the Kyoto Protocol. In this Paris Agreement, there is no difference between the developing and the developed countries. It is telling that everybody is creating pollution, everybody has to contribute to reduce that pollution. But what did Kyoto Protocol tell? Kyoto Protocol had divided the countries, or it had classified the countries as developing and developed countries, like Annex 1 countries and non-Annex 1 countries. Okay, so there was no binding, it was not binding on the developing countries to reduce the climate change, because it was felt that it was the developing countries that emitted a lot of pollutants into the atmosphere, and that led to the change in the temperature or rise in the temperature. So, but this Paris Agreement is not differentiating between anybody, it is telling everybody has to do their part to reduce the pollution. The agreement talks about 20-20-20 targets. So this becomes important here. Paris Agreement talks about 20-20-20 targets. That is 20%. First 20 is for carbon dioxide emission reduction by 20%. Then 20%, other 20% is working on increasing the renewable energy. You have to increase renewable energy use. More than non-renewable energy, you have to use sources like solar, wind, etc. Target to increase energy efficiency by 20%. That is the recent ones, like we have seen the Bharat stage 4 to Bharat stage 6, we have shifted the engines. So that also comes under the energy efficiency targets. Now, what is UNFCCC? I told you Paris Agreement was parent organization is UNFCCC, or the mother organization is UNFCCC. This UNFCCC was signed in 1992 at the United Nations Conference on Climate, Environment and Development, and it entered into force in 1994. It was also known as the Earth Summit, the Rio Summit. It was also known as what was it called as? The Earth Summit or the Rio Summit, and it is ratified by 197 countries. What is the objective? It is to stabilize the greenhouse gas concentrations in the atmosphere at a level that would prevent dangerous anthropogenic interference with the climate system. So this UNFCCC also was not legally binding in nature. Okay, now I told you there is a current aspect to it, that is why it has also been in news, the Paris Agreement. Why? The United Nations want to leave the deal when literally the whole world is agreeing to this deal. Why? Because Donald Trump is saying that the Paris Agreement is unfair to the US interest. He says that it is against their interests. The United States is the world's second largest emitter of greenhouse gas. Now, if one country is leaving, why is everybody worrying so much? Because United States is the second largest emitter of greenhouse gas. So some efforts by United States, if it is not doing some effort, that will what other countries are doing under Paris Agreement, will be like it will go waste, or in some way it is not going to contribute so much when the largest emitter, when one of the largest emitter is quitting it. So that has become a concern right now. Now now when we know that the US is leaving, does the Paris agreement have some provisions for some country if it wants to leave? So what is the procedure if some country wants to leave that agreement? Now, first question is, can a country leave the Paris agreement? The answer, when US is leaving, it is obviously yes. The country can leave the Paris agreement. According to Article 28 of Paris Agreement, allows the countries to leave the Paris Agreement and lay down the process for leaving. Article 28 talks about the whole process of the leaving of Paris Agreement. A country can only give a notice for leaving at least 3 years after the Paris Agreement has come into force. That is, Paris Agreement came into force in 2016. That is, only after 3 years of 2016, any country can give a notice of leaving the Paris Agreement. This happened on November 4, 2016. Therefore, the US is eligible to move a notice for leaving on November 4th this year. That is, not this year, it is 2019. The withdrawal is not immediate, not this year, okay. It is 2019. The withdrawal is not immediate. That is, as soon as the US tells that it is backing out from the Paris Agreement, it does not mean automatically or immediately it will go out. There will be 1 year period, okay, that it has to serve. Like the employees serve their notice period in companies, it is the same way. That 1 year it will be there, and this 1 year it is like a second chance for US to decide whether it will stay back or it really wants to leave. Okay, it is not immediate. However, it takes effect 1 year after the submission of notice. It means the United Nations will be out in the Paris Agreement only November 4th next year. That is November 4th, 2020, this year. Okay, is it possible that USA can return to the Paris Agreement? Now, when I told you that can a country leave? Second question is, can it come back? Yes, it can come back. There are no stringent provisions that it cannot come back, or there is no big process that it has to follow to come back. It is very simple. If a country wants to leave, it can leave, giving a notice period of 1 year, and after 1 year, it is happy to leave. And if it wants to return, it is always welcome. It can just come in. Now, the second topic for today is the National Green Tribunal. What is this National Green Tribunal? It is, what do you know by a tribunal? It is adjudicating body that is going to solve some disputes. So this National Green Tribunal is like a court, or it is going to solve cases that is related to environment. This is in simple terms if I have to put this. The National Green Tribunal has been established on 18/10/2010 under the National Green Tribunal Act of 2010. So it is having a statutory backing. It is for effective and expeditious disposal of cases that are relating to environmental protection and conservation of forest and other natural resources, including enforcement of any legal right relating to environment and giving relief and compensation for damages to persons and property and for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto. So the already are normal courts that are there, they are already overfilled with the cases, or they are saturated with the number of civil cases or criminal cases. Even if the environmental issues have to go to the court, it will take a longer time for it to be resolved. So we are because environment is a vital part of our life. So that is why we are creating a separate adjudicating body so that these cases can be disposed of at its earliest. Tribunal is not bound by the procedure under CPC or the Indian Evidence Act of 1982. It only works under principles of natural justice. Okay, it is not bound by CPC or Indian Evidence Act. However, the tribunal, what is the tribunal? What is the power of the tribunal? It is having the power of a civil court. Okay, it is having a power of a civil court under the CPC for discharging its functions. Only if you give some body some power, then only whatever decisions it is going to take is going to have a bigger impact or bigger effect. India became the third country in the world after Australia and New Zealand. That is, Australia and New Zealand already have something called as not the National Green Tribunal, but Tribunal for adjudicating the environmental disputes. So India has joined this two countries because it has set up this National Green Tribunal for setting up a specialized environmental tribunal and also the first developing country to do so. This becomes important. So the National Green Tribunal, you can ask me, where is the National Green Tribunal? It is definitely not only in Delhi. Okay, Delhi is the principal seat, but it is also there in Bhopal, Pune, New Delhi, Kolkata and Chennai. Okay. What is the structure of NGT? Okay, this is one of the important things when you study about any body. You have to know what is the structure or what is the composition of this. So the National Green Tribunal has three major bodies, namely the chairperson, judicial members and the expert members. Also, there should be minimum of 10 and maximum of 20 full-time judicial as well as expert members in the NGT. So this is the composition. There is a chairperson, there is judicial members and there are expert members. And how these are divided? There has to be 10 minimum members and 20 full-time judicial as well as expert members in the NGT. Okay, all these members are required to hold, what is their term of office? It is 5 years. And are they eligible for reappointment? They are not eligible for reappointment. The chairman of the National Green Tribunal is appointed by the central government of India. So this is very important. The chairperson, who appoints the chairperson? It is the central government of India in accordance with the Chief Justice of India. The select committee is formed by the central government of India for the appointment of judicial members and expert members. So here comes the confusion, a lot of confusion. Is the chairperson appointed by the president? Is it appointed by the prime minister? No, he is appointed by the central government itself by the advice of the Chief Justice of India and a selection committee. So this becomes easier because it is a tribunal, it is a court. So you definitely have to take a suggestion from a judge. So who is the judge? He is Chief Justice of India itself. And now I have told you, other than the chairperson, there will be judicial members and expert members. So these judicial members and expert members, they are selected using a select committee. A select committee is formed by the central government and they will choose people who are judicial members and who are expert members, and they will be appointed to NGT. NGT also provides a procedure for penalty for non-compliance because it is having some power to place punishment on people. That is why NGT is a strong body. Okay. So what will happen if you are not complying or if you are not following the instructions or you are destroying the environment? There will be penalty that will be given by NGT. So there will be an imprisonment for a term of 3 years, up to 3 years. Okay. It is may extend up to 3 years. That is maximum can be 3 years. The fine may extend up to 10 crore rupees. So this is a larger amount. So you can see how important is environment to us. And both fine and imprisonment, if your crime is bigger or if whatever the mistake you have done is bigger, then both can be imposed on you. The National Green Tribunal will resolve various cases under the 7 laws that are there. This becomes very, very important for us. Okay, what are the laws that the National Green Tribunal is going to adjudicate? Okay, it is the Water Act, Water Cess Act, Forest Act, Air Act, Environment Act, Biodiversity Act, and this is one thing people tend to forget. This is Public Liability Insurance Act. So please remember, there are 7 laws on which the National Green Tribunal will adjudicate, and here also remember there is no Wildlife Protection Act, and that might become one of the important statements in your examination. In 2015, so we are looking at some of the important cases that were adjudicated by the NGT. So there are 3 cases that I have picked up. In 2015, the NGT ordered that all the diesel vehicles over 10 years old will not be permitted to ply in Delhi NCR. That is Delhi NCR region more than 10 years. If the diesel vehicle is more than 10 years old, it was not allowed to be driven in the Delhi region. So this was an order given by NGT in 2015. In 2017, it gave another important judgment, that is for Art of Living Festival on Yamuna food plain was declared violating the environmental norms. So NGT panel imposed a penalty of 5 crore rupees. See the amount of penalty, it is very huge. And in 2017, it imposed an interim ban on plastic bags of less than 20 micron thickness. So you have to use bags that has thickness more than 50 micron in Delhi, because they were causing animal deaths and clogging sewers and harming the environment. Because of this, NGT has given this. So you can see what kind of matters NGT will adjudicate on. So the third topic for today is the air pollutants. It is specifically air pollutants and not air pollution. So we are going to talk only about those materials that is going to create some change in the environment that is not desirable to human beings. That thing is called as the pollutant. Okay, now let us define what is a pollutant first. A pollutant is a substance or energy introduced into the environment and has undesired effects or adversely will affect the usefulness of a resource. This is known as a pollutant. As I told you, if there is some substance and it is very harmful, it is going to cause some undesired effect in the environment. That thing is known as a pollutant. Now, you can classify the pollutants as primary pollutants and secondary pollutants. That is, when you release a pollutant into the atmosphere, if it remains in the form that you have released it, that is known as a primary pollutant. If it is a secondary pollutant, the primary pollutants undergo some change or they interact with each other and form something new or something different. It will take a different form. That is known as a secondary pollutant. For first thing, what is a primary pollutant? It is any pollutant that you have released into the atmosphere and it will stay in the form that you have released it. That is known as a primary pollutant. What is a secondary pollutant? There is a change in the primary pollutant's nature and it changes its nature, some properties of it, then it is called as a secondary pollutant. Examples of a primary pollutant is DDT, plastic, carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, oxides of nitrogen, sulfur, etc. Secondary pollutants, the pollutants formed by the intermingling and reaction of primary pollutants, as I told you. Example, peroxyacetyl nitrate is formed by the interaction of nitrogen oxides and hydrocarbons. So the next is particulate pollutants and gaseous pollutants. So these are the many different ways how you can classify the pollutants. First was primary pollutants and secondary pollutants. Now the second part is particulate pollutants and the gaseous pollutants. What are the particulate pollutants? Lead, fly ash, metal oxides and nanoparticles. These are particulates. Gaseous means some gas that is going to create some undesired effect in the atmosphere is known as a gaseous pollutant. So these are carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, chlorofluorocarbons, ozone, sulfur oxide, sulfur dioxide, and there are many more like benzene, etc. Okay. What are particulate pollutants? Particulate pollutants are matter suspended in air such as dust or soot. Major sources of the suspended particulate matter is from the industries, from the vehicles, power plants, oil refineries, construction areas, marketplace, etc. And these particulate pollutants can have, what is their size? It is from 0.001 to 500 micrometers. Particulate less than 10 micrometers will float and they will move freely in the air current. Particulates that are more than 10 micrometers in diameter, they will settle down. So this is very important to note, okay, this number. Particles less than 0.02 nanometers form persistent aerosols. We know aerosols are very much dangerous in the atmosphere as well as they are useful. We will talk about this in our further lectures, how the aerosols are useful to us. Okay. What is fly ash? Okay, this is also a particulate pollutant. Fly ash is ejected mostly by the thermal power plants as a byproduct of coal burning, because when you burn coal, this fly ash is it is released, and now there are steps that are taken that this fly ash, which is almost in all the power plants, all the thermal power plants, this fly ash is being released, but it is not being used anywhere. Now this is definitely it is definitely a waste material. So government wants to convert this waste material into some useful material. So it is telling the people or the construction workers to use this fly ash in the construction. Okay, because fly ash is very strong material. It has a great binding capacity, so it can be used as a construction material, like as an alternative to cement. It can be used. Okay, it can be used in construction industry, and their government has also told to lay down the or to build roads around the thermal power plants up to 100 or 50 kilometers using fly ash only, so that this fly ash that is generated as a waste material does not add to the junk. Okay, it does not create another problem, so this can be used in a way that is useful to people. Fly ash will pollute the air, it will also pollute water, and may also cause heavy metal pollution in the water bodies. The fly ash will affect the crops, it will also affect the vegetation as a result of direct deposition on the leaf surfaces. If something is there on the leaf surface, as we spoke in the previous lecture, what did I tell you? There will not be transpiration. Okay, the plants will give out water from their from the plant body through the stomata, that is the pores that are present in the leaves, the tiny pores. When something is covering on that leaf, that transpiration will not take place. It is like someone blocking your nose, you cannot breathe. It is the same way it is going to affect the plants. Lead, we know it is an important pollutant that is there in the atmosphere, and it is a particulate pollutant. It is present in petrol, diesel, lead batteries, paints, hair dye products, etc., and it is going to cause serious nerve damage, nerve system damage, and digestive problems. Okay, it will affect the children very much. And tetraethyl lead is used as an anti-knocking agent in petrol for the smooth and easy running of the vehicles. We know the unleaded petrol that is there. So we use tetraethyl lead, okay, in the petrol vehicles, because the petrol vehicles engine is very much sensitive compared to the diesel vehicles engine. So it is used as a anti-knocking agent, so there will be smooth running of the vehicles. The lead particles coming out from the exhaust pipes of vehicles is mixed with the air, and it will also enter into the food chain. As we know, it will enter into food and it will create poisoning for us. In the long term effect, it will cause in the children will have, who are exposed to this lead pollution, they will have lower intelligence levels. It will also affect our kidney, liver, and also it will also interfere, or it will stunt the growth of the RBCs, red blood cells. The next kind of particulate pollutant is the metallic oxides. Metallic oxides of iron, zinc, aluminium, manganese, magnesium, etc., and other metals have an adverse effect due to deposition of dust on the plants during mining operations and metallurgical processes. The same thing that I explained to you with the 2 slides before this. They create physiological, biochemical, developmental disorders in plants, and also contribute to the reproductive failure of the plants. The same thing. What are nanoparticles? What do you mean by nano? Something 10 to the power of minus 9 is known as nano. Okay, something of this size is a nanoparticle. So if that nanoparticle is creating some pollution, that is known as a nanoparticle pollutant. Okay, major sources of these are the volcanic eruptions, weathering, dust storms from the deserts, etc. And these naturally occurring nanoparticles are quite heterogeneous in size and can be transported over thousands of kilometers and remain suspended in the air for several days. So this is definitely a bigger concern because it keeps traveling. Okay, it is not persistent in one kind of atmosphere, it keeps traveling, and nanoparticles are definitely not visible to our eye, and it is not so easy to remove them from the atmosphere. Nanotechnology has a global socio-economic value with applications ranging from electronics to biomedical uses, delivering drugs to the target sites, etc. Now we have also got a question in 2020 prelims about the carbon nanotubes. That is, these nanotubes are very, very, very small. So they can carry this drug to every cell of your body. So you can imagine what technology is there now. How important is nanotechnology for us, and this nanotechnology finds its uses from electronics to biomedical, as I told you a biomedical example just now. Man-made nanoparticles are unknowingly or purposefully released into the atmosphere using industrial or mechanical processes also. Are these nanoparticles only natural pollutants? No, they can also be man-made. That is what the last statement says. Now let us see about the gaseous pollutants. Gaseous pollutants are very famous and all of us know about them. And these are carbon monoxide. It is highly toxic. How is carbon monoxide formed? It is by the incomplete combustion is how the carbon monoxide is formed. Produced from the internal combustion due to incomplete combustion. Sources are volcanoes, forest fires, etc. Carbon monoxide is a greenhouse gas. What are greenhouse gases? We will see that later. Okay, carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is also a greenhouse gas. It is heavier than air. Sources for carbon dioxide are volcanoes, fire, coal-fired power plants, etc. You know all the sources. Almost everybody knows all the sources of carbon dioxide. Chlorofluorocarbons, CFCs, they are used in refrigerators, air conditioners, the aerosols, etc. So these CFCs also contribute to the pollution, air pollution. Ozone, O3. Okay, ozone is 3 molecules. Okay, 3 molecules of oxygen, and this ozone is a greenhouse gas. Okay, ozone is a greenhouse gas, and this ozone that is present in the stratosphere is very good for us. So don't confuse with the ozone that is present in the stratosphere, because the stratospheric ozone is going to protect the human beings from the sun's UV light, but the ozone that is present at the ground level is very bad for the humans. Okay, I am talking about the ozone that is present at the troposphere. Okay, that is very harmful to the humans. This is produced due to industries, vehicles, etc. It is also a greenhouse gas. Nitrogen oxide. There are various nitrogen oxides of nitrogen that is going to cause pollution, caused due to the reaction between nitrogen and oxygen and high temperatures such as combustion engines and industries. Sulfur dioxide, it is a very bad smelling gas. The sulfur dioxide is a bad smelling gas. It is released from volcanic activities and some industrial process, and also during the production of sulfuric acid. When these sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxide will combine, they will also cause acid rain in the atmosphere. Okay, they will combine to form some acids, or nitrogen dioxide will combine with water to form some acids, and separately sulfur dioxide also will combine with water to produce some acid. Okay, the nitric acid and the sulfuric acid. So these will come down in the form of precipitation. They will come down in the form of rain, and this rain is acid rain. Okay, please remember this as well. Last topic for today is the National Water Mission. Okay, the National Water Mission, it is Jal Jeevan Mission to ensure Har Ghar Jal, piped water supply to all the rural households by 2024. New ministry, under the new ministry Jal Shakti Mantralay, to manage water resources and water supply in an integrated and holistic manner with the state governments. Now, I don't know how many of you have noticed this in the rural areas. There is a pipe connection. Always, what was the scenario in the villages? There used to be a common water tank, and everybody used to get water from that common water tank. Now there is no need, because for every house government has put a pipeline. Okay, every house is having a tap now. They have a tap near in front of their house. They can just turn the tap and they can get water. This is known as Har Ghar Jal, and this is working because I have seen it directly. All the pipelines that have been put in the villages, okay, that every house is going to get by 2024, they are telling. And very important is which ministry does this come under. This comes under Jal Shakti Mantralay. It is a new ministry. Okay, it is Jal Shakti Ministry. Please remember, it is Jal Shakti Ministry. It will focus on integrated demand and supply side management of water at the local level, including creation of local infrastructure for source sustainability like rainwater harvesting, groundwater recharge, and management of household wastewater to reuse in agriculture. So, what is the National Water Mission? It is not only providing water to every house. Okay, it is also, if there is a statement that says National Water Mission is only to provide water to every household, it is wrong, because it is also involved in other processes like rainwater harvesting, groundwater recharge, management of household water for reuse in agriculture. All these also are included under the National Water Mission. Jal Jeevan Mission will converge with other central and the state governments to achieve this objective for sustainable water supply in the country. So which ministry? I told you it is Jal Shakti Ministry. implementing agency is Department of Drinking Water and Sanitation under the Jal Shakti Ministry. What are the features? There is integrated demand and supply side management of water bodies at local level. It will implement source sustainability measures and reuse through grey water management and water conservation, rainwater harvesting. So these are other measures other than Har Ghar Jal. Okay. It will converge with other central and state government schemes to achieve its objectives. Is it only the central government that is going to do, or just the central government scheme? No, it can also combine with some other important schemes of the state governments also. Next. Okay, how is the financing done? Financing is how is the funding. Okay, financing is nothing but funding. The project is estimated for 3.60 lakh crores cost. Okay, with the union government and northeastern states and the non-Himalayan states sharing the expense 50:50. Okay, union government and the non-northeast states and non-Himalayan states. This can simply be put as union government and the states. Okay, it is 50:50. For the northeastern states and the Himalayan states, the sharing is 90:10, and for the union territories, the center will bear the full cost of the program. This structure of funding is very important, as these can be framed as statements in the prelims examination. I hope this video was very helpful, as I have made it very elaborate. Kindly mention your suggestions to the videos, or any improvements that can be made, or any doubts, please comment in the comment box below. That is it for today. Thank you.